All right, today we are going to be making a composition that exemplifies the design principles we've been talking about. So for starters, I'm going to have you draw yourself a rectangle. This is going to be the frame that you're going to be working within. So you are welcome to use a ruler, but it is not necessary. This is just, it's practice. I'm going to draw a rectangle. Okay, so if you recall, the design principles that we've been working with are a focal point. So we want an area for the eye to rest. And to create a focal point, we're going to follow that rule of thirds. So I'm going to divide this space up into thirds. Just light lines. These are going to be guidelines. Once again, welcome to use a ruler, but really not necessary. Just practice. Okay. So I divided this up into thirds, and I divided this up into thirds. And if you recall, the focus is going to be on one of these areas. Okay. So to start my composition, what I'm going to do is take, you should all have a collection of colored papers, and I find it a nice way to start is to cut yourself we want some lines, some squares, some curved shapes. So I'm just going to take a group of these, a pile of these papers, and ideally you have some lights and some darks as well. You don't have to use all your papers, but get yourself a collection of lights and darks. And I'm just going to go ahead and start by cutting some strips. These will be little lines. Okay, a pile of strips. I'm also going to go ahead and cut some little square shapes. All of these can be adjusted. It's just nice to have a few things pre-cut, so you're not cutting every time you want to find a new shape. Some squares. I'm going to make I want to have some shapes, I'll show you, similar to this, like a little donut shape. That can be really nice when you're trying to do overlapping. So I'll go ahead and draw a circle-like shape, not perfect, like that. And if I was doing something and I was really wanting this to be done neatly, I could use an X-Acto knife to cut out that center. It's not necessary at this point, so I'll just go ahead and cut that. To the side. And then I'll just cut right into this. I've got some little donut shapes. Okay, so you can see over here my little collection. Got a nice little setup. I also have the middle of those donuts, so I have some little circles. I feel like I am ready to get started. Cut through these all the way. Okay, so I'm going to start with the first principle, which is the first principle we're working with, which is the focal point. I think that's an easy place to start. So I want my eye to focus on one of these areas. I'm going to choose this one. I'm going to use one of these little donut shapes, and I'm going to use that principle of, or that idea of overlapping, because I know if we have overlapping, that's going to help bring the eye where I want it to go. Cutting down one of these little squares, make it smaller. Got some overlap. So right away, my eye is going over there. But that's obviously not the only principle that I want to think about. I also want to think about, let's do unity. So unity is this idea that we want the whole space to feel like it goes together. So there's different things I can do to unify. One is anything that's over here in the focal point, I can put other places in the picture. So I'm going to take the color, this light purple, and put it in some other places. I've got these stripes. I'm also going to take some of this pink from that focal area and put that in other places. It's going to help to unify it. And notice I'm paying attention to all the different spaces in the on the page. I haven't gotten anything up here or over here yet, but I'm thinking about sort of filling the space, like addressing the whole space. Another thing I want to think about with unifying is not only making sure that these colors are elsewhere, but I want to make sure these shapes are elsewhere. So I don't have any other curves in the space. So what if I add another, use this purple and add another curve? Little moon shape. One is there. I'd probably maybe add another one over here. Or maybe I'll add another color. I'll keep that shape that I want to add more of, but I'm gonna introduce another color because I think it just needs a little more interest. Okay. All right. So now we have another color introduced. To unify it, keeping with unity, I'm going to need to add that color elsewhere. If I just add it there, it's going to look kind of all by itself, like it somehow does not fit in. So where else can I add that light blue? I'll go ahead and add it here. All right, and I'm going to add it, maybe a little strip of it down here. You'll start to get, at first it's going to seem a little bit awkward and you're going to think, what am I doing? Composition, some of you might already have a pretty good sense of composition, but some of you, it might take longer and you might have to make a lot of these before it starts to feel like a really natural thing. I don't actually think literally about each of these principles when I make a composition. It's sort of ingrained in my head by now, but it'll take a while for that to happen. Okay. All right. So let's move on. We've got our focal point. We have a sense of unity, so let's check that off. We'll have to keep coming back to these, to be honest. What about rhythm? So rhythm is this sense of movement throughout the space. And addressing the unity already created some sense of rhythm, but I want to add more movement throughout this space. Let's go ahead and introduce, so that means having lines go in different directions, something moves the eye throughout the whole space. I'm going to introduce a darker color. We don't have any black in here yet. Let's see what happens. So right off, that is not unified anymore when I add that little bit of black, but I'll add some black elsewhere. So I'll add it maybe in here. It's going to emphasize that focal point. We have very few. Let's put one right here. Going to help move the eye around the space. What else can we do to create more rhythm? Try another curve shape. See what if we add any little circle shapes, or we could add another one of these little black donut shape. That can help us move around the space. Oops. Okay, so it's going to be annoying. You probably will. I can't remember where that was. I think it was like this. Okay. Yeah, you'll want to get these obviously glued down eventually. That's going to make it so you don't have to deal with all the moving. But I would not glue down until you're further in the process and you make sure you've kind of got all your principles addressed. All right. So once you feel like you've got a good sense of rhythm, or that the eye is sort of moving around the whole space, and to be honest, I'd probably keep pushing this. I'm not convinced that we're quite there yet. How else can we move the eye through this space? But once we feel like you've done that, we're getting better, I think. then we want to work on our last principle, which is balance. And sometimes by this point, it might already be balanced, but we're just going to check. Does this feel balanced? I mean, there's a bit more going on this side, which is fine. It doesn't have to be exactly balanced. But if you feel like there's too much going on in one spot and not enough in another, then we got to add things to the other side. Or if we had all dark on one side, that would make it feel unbalanced. All right. And then if you feel like you're good to go on balance, which I feel like that feels pretty balanced to me, does it have a sense of rhythm? I'd probably keep adding some more curves here, and that should be good for rhythm. Does it feel unified? Yep, we have color here. We also have it elsewhere. And do we have a focal point? Is our eye resting in this spot? Yes, I believe that it is. Then you are good to go. So that would be your practice. All right, thank you.